Hey folks, welcome back to another video. You join me in my garden. I was down the lake to do this video, but I had a few technical issues, so I thought I'd come back and just do it here. It was a lot easier. It was drizzling as well, but it's brightened up now. Today's video is all about the Edelrid Giga Jul. Now this device is one that I get asked questions about loads. Whenever I do a video reviewing a belay device or talking about how to pay out slack quick on a gree-gree, anything like that, people always ask me if I've tried this device. And I had briefly used one, but I'd never had a long-term use of one. So I messaged one of our channel supporters outside and they kindly sent me this one to try. So I've been using it for quite a while now on sport stuff, indoor stuff, trad stuff on half ropes as well. I was properly cynical about this device, having used other Edelrid devices in the past, Jul, Mega Jul. I'd never enjoyed using them. They'd always been a bit of a pain, fiddly or grabby, just not nice to use. So I was expecting to absolutely dislike this device. Edelrid only do assisted braking belay devices. That's part of their company ethos, and it kind of lines up with my thought process as well. There's something I've been thinking for quite some time now, is why don't I use an assisted braking belay device for trad climbing? Because I do for sport climbing and indoor climbing, because as you probably know if you watch this channel, I use the gree-gree loads. It's my favourite device. I've got a couple of these. One lives in my sport bag, one lives in my indoor bag. I love it. Does exactly what I want to do. Locks up when I want it to, easy to use, smooth to pay out slack when you're used to it, all those kind of things. Partly that's familiarity. I've used one so much, but that's part of it, isn't it? But for trad climbing, I've been using an ATC guide for years and years and years, various different ones because they wear out eventually. This one's probably is sort of on its last legs. The groove teeth are on their way out, but I love them. Works really smoothly, has guide mode, does exactly what I want it to do, but no assistance on it. Unless you're in guide mode, and obviously then it would lock up if you're belaying 2 seconds. But in normal, in inverted commas use, and if you're belaying the leader, there's no assistance to it at all. The Edelrid Giga Jul, I mean, it looks very similar, doesn't it? The wire is a bit different, but other than that, it looks pretty similar. And you can use it exactly the same. So you can use it in manual mode because it's got this little switch on it. You just flick it one way or the other from manual to assisted. Let me just put that down. So you could just use it in manual the same as that and live happily ever after, right? You pay out slack, you take in slack, your mate falls off, you hold on tight to the braking strand, all that kind of stuff. You put it into guide mode and then it will lock up that way, same as the ATC guide. But going back to that sort of thought process on why don't I use an assisted braking device? Well, I can say, oh, because I always hold on to the braking strand. But what if? What if I get hit by a rock? What if I pass out? What if I get slammed into the wall and do let go? None of those things have ever happened to me, but they might. Who knows? And that's where the magic of this device comes in. It's that switch, being able to put it in to assisted braking mode. And now I load it the reverse way. There's a picture for manual, there's a picture for assisted, but I load it the reversed way basically. And I pay out slack as normal, I take in as normal. If my mate falls off though, it locks up because it's a geometry assisted braking device. So that gets rammed into there, changes the angles, and the rope will lock up. It takes a bit of practice to get used to it, because if you go to pay out slack quick, a bit like with a gree-gree, it wants to jam up, it thinks it's, you know, catching a fool, doesn't it? So it wants to lock up. So you have to have your thumb under the catch there to keep it open. Requires a bit of practice, but not a lot in all honesty. But you have a thumb under there, you keep the rest of your hand on the ropes and you pay out slack, you know, 1 rope, 2 ropes, both ropes, whatever, depends what you're using. And it works just fine. I guess the little tricky in inverted commas bit is transitioning between thumb or no thumb, but it just becomes second nature in no time at all. A gree-gree, when it locks up, is kind of on or off, isn't it, right? With a slightly chunkier rope, like maybe a 9.5-ish kind of rope, I find it pretty on or off. It's either locked or it isn't. When you're using skinnier half ropes, I do find there's a bit of creep, but only a small amount. Like I say, different rope combinations, carabiner combinations affect it, so it's worth a practice with the different, whatever combination you're going to use basically. So there is some creep, but I'm talking like creep. I'm not talking rope rushing through it or anything. I'm talking super controlled creep. As soon as you hold on even slightly, it's locking up really strongly. Is there a time when you don't want an assisted braking device? Perhaps this might be a bit niche. I'm not sure if it's niche or not, but you're thinking on harder trad, you might want to give a bit of a soft catch to protect that top bit of gear. That might be you jumping, but it might be somewhere where that's not really appropriate, who knows. So maybe you want to be able to let a bit slip through, maybe you don't. There's some thought, is an advanced, in inverted commas again, technique, isn't it? But I think for the most part, most of us probably want that assisted mode, don't we? Just in case. A bit like wearing a seatbelt. I don't intend to crash my car, but you never know. You can still flick it back into guide mode, but you have to flick that back into manual for that. You can also, and I was definitely cynical about this as well, or sceptical rather about this, you can have it in assisted brake mode and abseil from it. And I'd read a few reviews of this device and readiness for doing my own review to have a bit of a heads up. Now I tried it first, it sits that way around, I tried it first on an extended abseil, and I found that, it was horrible to use, in all honesty. When it's up here and you're tilting it to open it up and feeding the rope through, it's just really jerky. But I gave it a few goes and I just didn't like it. I was ready to sack it off, but I thought I'd try it just directly on the harness. Because it's got the assisted braking on it, you don't need to use a Pro-6. There's not necessarily any reason to have it extended up here, so I put it down onto my belay loop on the harness, and it worked really well actually, to the point where actually that would be my preferred method now with this device, is to not use a Pro-6 as a backup and just put it into assisted mode. I find it dead smooth to use. I've used it on skinny half ropes, I've used it on like 2 pretty chunky work ropes as well, and it's just pretty nice actually. So it's a really good all-rounder I've found. You can have the assistance, you can not have the assistance, you can use it in guide mode, assisted abseil, normal abseil, whatever you want to do. I'm properly singing its praises here, aren't I? There must be some downsides. Well, there are a few, of course there are. I thought that wire bit was going to be a downside. It's pretty big compared to the normal ATC style thing, so I thought it was going to be uncomfortable on the harness. Don't even notice it. Even trying to notice it, I don't even notice it. Weight, that perhaps is a slight disadvantage. This is about 90 grams, this one's about 120 grams, so that's about the weight of a phantom wire gate. So yeah, there is a bit, you notice it picking it up. Do I notice it on my harness? No, of course I don't. Slight disadvantage, I suppose, though. I've said it's a really good all-rounder, and that's great. If you only ever have one belay device, actually this is what I'd recommend now. I would recommend the Giga Jul all day long for that one device. Yeah, quite happily actually. I'm lucky enough to be able to have more than one belay device, so I do prefer the Grigri for sport and for indoor climbing, so I'm going to stick with the Grigri for it. I really like using it. I'm going to take this without question for trad and work trad as well. I thought I was going to just use this device for this review, have a play with it, decide I don't like it, put it in that box of stuff that's never going to get used, and go back to this thing. But actually it's the opposite. This thing has found its way into that box of things I don't use or rarely use, and this is the thing that sits on my harness each day, every day pretty much. I'm a massive fan of it. One more disadvantage though. It's pretty minor, this one. When you put it in guide mode on a ATC or a pivot or anything like that, if you want to flick it around for whatever reason, you can, but on this you can't fit the barrel through that hole, even with a normal carabiner. On these it just slides through, no drama. It's a pretty minor disadvantage, but it's slightly annoying. I think those are aluminium and this is steel. I don't know why they didn't make it a little bit bigger though. Maybe there's a reason, I don't know. It's not a how-to video, it's just a review, but to release a guide plate, it's the same principle, all that kind of stuff. So, the Edelrid Giga Jul, I'm a fan. It takes some getting used to. There's a bit of a learning curve with it. It's not, if you put it in assisted, it's not quite the same as just using a normal belay device, but it's the same as the Grigri. With a little bit of practice, they just become super nice to use. And is there an excuse, like I say, for not using an assisted braking device? I don't know. It's personal choice. I'd never say you have to. Of course I wouldn't. It's personal choice. But well, I'm struggling to think of reasons not to be honest. Do fire away questions. I'm happy to answer as best I can with these things. As always, if you wanted to buy one, there's a link below in the description to Outside, who, like I say, support the channel and sell these. Highly recommended. Like I say, I was fully skeptical about it. I was expecting to not like it at all, but I'm converted. Do fire those questions. Like I say, click the like button if you've enjoyed the video, click the subscribe button. All these things help with the channel. Find us on Insta and on Facebook, all the things I ask every time. The support has been just phenomenal. I'm so happy about it. It's just massive thanks to everyone for watching these videos. Do fire away those questions though. Other than that, thanks very much for watching. More videos coming up very soon.